I think we are live right now on YouTube. Today is Sunday, December 11th, 2022. Oh, this is my Party City captain hat. I do have a better yacht hat, but it's up in the attic and I just cannot find it today. So I'm supposed to have a co-host. You'll see on the screen it's supposed to be me and Will. Will loves to run late, so it might be just me today. And that's fine because it's all about making content right now and making it at a consistent time every Sunday, 4:30 to 6. And hopefully one day it will be popular enough for people to actually watch. But I just need people to know that we are here and we would love to take your call. The number's on the screen, 727-201-3086. Right now I'm not set up to take multiple calls, so it's really one at a time, and it's not like it's going to be an issue for a long time. So if you see the number and I'm not on a call, call in. Ask me a question. You can ask me about anything. I've been boating for 11 years, and I've learned a lot. I've been out on the water almost every day some of those years, and I have a lot of knowledge to share. So I'm just making content to share that knowledge with the world. So since I'm the only host today, I picked the topic, and the topic that I want to talk about is outboards, inboards, IOs, and jet drives. And I will get into that in just a second. And the second's up. All right, so I'm just going to get going on it, and we'll see how far I get. This might be a 20-minute show today. Maybe I have 30 minutes worth of information. We'll see. All right, let's get started. Outboards, inboards, IOs, and jet drives. What those are 4 different types of, let's call it propulsions, for a boat. And let me see if I can describe each one. And there may be more. Maybe like a steamship, if any steamships are still around. But these are the 4 main ones, especially around here in Florida. An outboard, first one, is probably the most common, and it's where the engine hangs off the back of the boat. It's clearly visible. It's got the plastic cowling, so you can see the whole top of the engine hanging off the back of the boat, and then the propeller is attached to it right down below. They're very common on small boats, and especially fishing boats. Okay. The next type are inboards. You're going to find these on bigger boats generally. Some small boats have them. This is where the engine is completely inside the boat, and the propeller shaft goes through the hull, comes out on the bottom of the boat, and the propeller is on the outside of the boat, of course. So engine inside, propeller outside, and that's basically it. Sailboats, almost every single sailboat has an inboard. Small sailboats, very small, like 26 feet and smaller, can have outboards. But most sailboats have inboards. An IO is an inboard outboard. And what that means is you've got an outdrive. What's an outdrive? Well, it's like an inboard, so the engine is inside the boat and the propeller is outside the boat. But instead of basically just the propeller on the outside of the boat, you have a large transmission-looking mechanism called the outdrive, which hangs off the transom or back of the boat, and your propeller is attached to that. Man, if only I had thought previously to get some pictures and put them up. All right, this is foresight. My boat, the Regal 27, has an IO. Okay, and the last one, a jet drive, is what jet skis have. If you look underneath a jet ski, or if you've ever seen a jet ski upside down, which happens a lot, and it's okay for them to flip over, there's no propeller under there. If you stick your hand underneath a jet ski, nothing's going to chop your hand off. What they have is an internal It's called an impeller, but it's an internal propeller. So boats also have that same drive. They're called jet boats. So it's just like a big jet ski. Okay, so I'm going to talk about what each one, where they benefit, where they don't benefit, and probably why I chose an IO. All right, first off, outboards. Why are outboards a good choice? You can get really close to sandbars. That's the number one. So let's say you are taking your friends to Egmont Key here in St. Petersburg, and you've got someone on board that doesn't want to get wet, or maybe it's winter and the water's cold and they just don't want to go in the water. You can trim up your outboard to where the propeller is just barely in the water, and let's say your boat draws 2 feet, let's say 1.5 feet, and with your outboard all the way down, you're adding an extra foot, so 2.5 feet total with your outboard down. You can trim your outboard up to where you're still able to cycle water, your engine's going to operate just fine, but you only are going to draw 1.5 feet, and you can take that all the way up to the island, and you're not going to be bumping the sand underneath you, or rocks, depending on where you are. And you can just stay, you can even bow your boat up onto the beach, trim your outboard all the way up, and keep it completely out of the water. So basically the number one thing is you can get really close to sandbars because you can trim up on them. They're also nice because there's a lot of mechanics that say outboards only. You have plenty of mechanics to choose from. It's a little bit harder to find mechanics for inboards, IOs, and jet drives. Another thing with outboards is very easy to work on. Since the engine is hanging right off the back of the boat, you just take that plastic cowling off and start wrenching on it. You don't have to go down into the boat. Outboards are also, I should be careful to say this, but I'm betting that they are the cheapest engine to replace. Obviously, there's still very expensive outboards out there. I'm thinking the 400 horsepower outboards, brand new ones, are probably in the $30,000 range for a new one. But that's still going to be cheaper than a lot of comparable horsepower inboards or jet drives. Okay, so like I said, outboards are probably most common. I bet that's true throughout the entire world, not just the United States and not just Florida. But fact check me on that. Let me know. All right, let's go to inboards. Actually, you know what? I just want to back up one quick second to talk about something that I don't like about outboards. Let's say you are on a small fishing boat. Let's say 30-foot fishing boat, and it's got twin outboards, twin 300s, whatever. And you get caught out in some nasty weather, and you are out in the Gulf, and you've got some 6-foot seas. When a boat goes up a wave, it's then going to come down the wave. And as it comes down the wave, since your engine is here at the back of the boat, it wants to come out of the water. So for just a second, as it comes down a wave, the propeller is more likely, I'm not saying it's going to happen, more likely to come out of the water because of how high up it is or its position on the boat. So for that second or two that the propeller comes out of the water, you don't have any propulsion. And I guess it's worth saying that the impeller, the rubber piece that cycles water, it has a lack of water for just a couple seconds. Now, over time, that could wear it out a little bit, but that's not our primary concern. It's the fact that we don't have any propulsion for a couple seconds. And those couple seconds do matter, especially in big storms. So yeah, the propeller's coming out of the water. That's a downside to an outboard. I don't think I have any other negative things to say about outboards. I think they're great engines. Oh, no, I thought of something. You lose your swim platform. That's a big one. So if a boat has a nice flat area at the back where you can put your legs in or have a swim ladder and you jump in off the back, the outboards generally will attach to the swim platform on some boats. And so you lose the access to going straight off the back of your boat because the outboards are in the way. And that's important to a lot of people. Okay, now I think I'm done talking poorly about outboards. Let's go to inboards. Inboards are, like I said, they're on almost all sailboats, and they're on, let's say, probably all cruise ships are going to have inboards. All tugboats are going to have inboards, as far as I know. All big yachts, we're talking, any boat that's about 50 feet or more is generally not going to have outboards. You do see quite a few fast, go fast boats with outboards up in the 50-foot range, but generally, especially your cruiser style boats, they're going to have inboards. Now, there is a big benefit to inboards, and that is that, how we talked about on the outboards, they come out of the water on those waves. Because of the placement of the propeller on an inboard, that propeller will never come out of the water. I don't care if you are in 20-foot seas and you are going full throttle, unless you are ramping up those and shooting through the air, that propeller is going to stay in the water. So this is nice, especially if you're caught out in heavy weather, to have an inboard over an outboard. Another one is you don't lose your swim platform space. If your boat has a swim platform and you have an inboard, you have full access to the back of your boat. You can climb right up on the back. Maintenance on an inboard is going inside the boat. All right, so on an outboard, it's hanging off the back, and you can open that cowling and work on it right there on the outside of the boat and have your tools all on the swim platform or wherever is convenient. On an inboard, you have to take your greasy fingers and you have to walk around the inside of the boat to access the engine. So you're doing oil changes, you better clean up real nice because you have to walk all that dirty oil and all those dirty rags out through the boat when you're done. Other benefits of inboards. I'd say that's probably it. The downside to inboards are that you cannot trim up at all. Those propellers are fixed. So you are let's say you're pulling up to Egmont Key and you want to get close to the island. Let's say you draw 4 feet. You need to stop getting closer to the island when you see that you're in about 5.5 feet of water, maybe even 6. You don't want to risk the boat bouncing with the waves and hitting the bottom of the seabed, whether it's sand or coral or whatever it is, because you're going to damage your propeller or bend your propeller shaft or break the strut. And that is a big concern because those are all costly repairs. So you cannot go in shallow water like you can with outboards. Inboards, you're really restricted with your depth. So yeah, it's a fixed propeller. Let's see. Do I have any other comments about inboards? I think I might come back to it, but I think that's all I have to say on that. Let's try IOs. Okay, I love IOs. They're like the hybrid of outboards and inboards. They are like an outboard because you can trim them up and down. You can get that propeller closer to the surface of the water for going in shallow areas. But they're also more like inboards in that the position of the propeller is generally farther towards the center of the boat and deeper. So that is better in storms, right? And let's see, on my Regal 27 is an IO. And you know how I mentioned on inboards you have to access the inside of the boat to work on the engines. Well, on my boat, the cushions at the back, they open up reverse. So if you're standing on the back of the boat, the cushions are going to open up and you can work on that engine from the back of the boat, keeping all your greasy fingers right there at the swim platform. You never have to walk over the nice cushions, and that is a great feature to have. You're not really going to find that on inboards. That's going to be, well, I don't know. Maybe there are some boats out there that do it that way, but generally that's more of an IO thing. As for, here's a downside. You have a whole extra component on an IO. You have an outdrive, which is like that transmission part that hangs off the back. I had to have mine replaced. It had a failed component, went bad, took out a bunch of gears with it, and a brand new one was, I think, about $12,000. Keep in mind, my boat's pretty small. It's a 27-foot. So that's a hefty repair. And some boats have 2 or even 3 IOs with each with their own outdrive. So this is just one more component that can go bad, more money to spend. But I have complete access to my swim platform. And something I want to mention is that I run charters. I run charters to the islands. And when I load up my clients, I back my boat into my slip on the St. Petersburg Pier. And I don't have any finger piers that come out. I can only load up from the back. So when I pull my boat in reverse back towards the dock, that swim platform is sitting right there where they load up, where my clients load up onto the boat. If I had outboards, I don't know how I'd load them up. It would be, I'd have to get very creative or build some kind of platform or, I don't know how to make a ramp. But it's very nice to have the IO on the dock that I'm at so that I can load people up. I think your most popular makes are Volvo and Mercury for the IO engines. I haven't had to have the engine replaced yet. It's got 910 hours on it, but I'm not looking forward to finding out what the replacement bill is on that. Okay, and the last one I want to talk about is jet drives. Oh man, people love to talk poorly on jet boats. They think they're cheap, or they think they're not going to last long. Well, let me just tell you that here in Florida, everything, especially on the Gulf Coast, okay, it's just one big sandbar with tiny little shallow channels that run between the sandbars. We have lots of shallow areas. If you are on the water and you look out and you see a bunch of dark water, everything looks the same, and you just head in any direction you want, if you have a boat with an outboard, an inboard, or an IO, you're going to wreck into a sandbar guaranteed. But not on a jet boat. And that is their best feature. You can go almost anywhere. And let's say you make a mistake. Oh boy, I ran it aground. I rode up onto this sandbar. Yeah, it's going to be a pain. You're going to have to figure out how to get your boat off. You're going to have to wave somebody down or call Towboat US or Sea Tow. But you didn't damage your propeller. Why? Because there's no propeller underneath the jet boat. It is internal. It's called an impeller. And if you look at the bottom of a jet boat, like a Yamaha 240 or the new 27-footer, it's just smooth. So you can run that thing right up on the sandbar. Yeah, it's going to be a pain, but at the end of the day, you're only spending money on a tow bill to get you off rather than a new propeller shaft, strut, and whatever else may come with it. What are the downsides to jet boats? Well, they are probably the easiest to come out of the water. I drove a jet boat for several years. It was a Yamaha 240, and I did many trips to the islands. And I remember I would be boating in 1-foot waves, it does get a little bumpy on a 24-footer in 1-foot waves, but it's still relatively small. And if I was going, say, more than like 28 miles an hour, the boat would ramp out of the water and I would hear the impellers spool up because they didn't have any resistance, and then they'd catch that water again. So those impellers very easily come out of the water. This is not good in big storms. So if you ever get caught out in a big storm on a jet boat, you just want to keep it slow enough where you don't hear that impeller spooling up. Let's see. Other upsides or downsides to the jet boat. Well, I don't want to talk too much on the shape of the hull on jet boats because I don't feel very confident about this, but I believe that they do need to keep their hulls more flat because of the placement of the impellers. They need to allow the water in. I've never seen a jet boat with a deep V bow, and I think that has to do with the need to keep the shape of the boat the way it is so that water goes into the impellers. So if you don't have a deep V, that just means that those waves that you're driving through are going to be harder to handle. The boat's going to feel more of a pounding sensation rather than a smooth, like a sailboat, right? When a sailboat goes through a wave, it just glides down into it and comes out over and over. Why? Because if you look at the bottom of a sailboat, it's basically like this, right? And then other power boats, their deep V's might look like this. But a jet boat is going to be very flat, and it's just going to pound those waves. All right, so I just want to mention some other stuff. Where would we use these certain boats? So, an outboard you can use anywhere. You just probably should stay near shore. I don't want to go from California to Hawaii on a boat with an outboard. Generally, those boats don't even have the fuel capacity anyway. But also, you don't want to get caught in big waves out there with an outboard because, like I said, you're going to lose that propulsion. Same thing with a jet drive. I don't want to go from California to Hawaii on a jet boat. I want an inboard for that. So here in Florida, I teach lessons, and people that take my lessons and they go out on my boat, sometimes they're looking for a boat with an IO, and that's great. I love to give them a lesson on what they think they want to buy. But they'll often say, well, what do you think I should buy? And I'm here to tell you as someone who's been around for a while in St. Petersburg and all over Florida, if you are looking for something stress-free, buy yourself a jet boat. I love the jet boats because of how little you have to worry about running aground. Running aground is a very real problem, and almost every boater has done it. I've been stuck on sandbars a handful of times, and every single time I had been stuck on a sandbar, if I was on a jet boat, it would not have been a big issue. And I probably wouldn't have even had to call for a tow. The lack of concern about sandbars is worth so much. If you are on a jet boat and you're driving down from St. Pete Beach to Egmont Key and you see that the water in front of you is a lighter color, and you identify, you say, that is a sandbar, I know it. And you look on your chart, and your chart says 1 foot deep. Oh, 1 foot. Huh. On any other boat, you would turn around. On a jet boat, full speed ahead. Now, I know this can sound a little reckless, and maybe it is, but I would do it. Because even if you drag a little, you're not going to damage anything, and in the chance that you do get stuck, back out of there, reverse. Your jet boat will reverse out just fine. But 1 foot of water on a Yamaha 240, that's plenty. Maybe less than that. Avoid. If you see land sticking up, that's too shallow. Don't run on the ground. But they can go in very shallow water. They can go in about 1 foot of water. Keep in mind, though, let's say you have a long stretch sandbar that's 1 foot deep, and you're on a jet boat and you're crossing that, and you're on a plane going fast. As soon as you slow down, you're drawing more water. So you could get stuck. And that is a real problem that happens to people probably all the time. It's definitely happened to me. If you are planing, cruising fast over a very shallow sandbar, don't stop unless you absolutely have to, because you're going to get stuck. And if you get stuck in the middle of a big section, then it's going to be an issue. Now you're really going to have to call towboat, and they might need 2 boats, and I bet you're not insured for that. I love jet boats. All right, it's 4:57. I actually got some talking in. Wow, okay. So I don't think Will's going to be joining us, considering it's 4:57. I'm actually surprised I had enough content for at least 27 minutes of talking about outboards, inboards, IOs, and jet drives. So the topics I pick, the reason that I pick these topics are I'm looking for keywords. I'm looking for what do most people want to know about boats. The topic last week was reading the weather. I think that's important for people to learn about the weather. Excuse me. This week, I wanted to do this topic because I think there's a lot of people that don't know the difference. And I realized that this would be way more helpful with pictures. So if I ever do a comparison one again, I will definitely get some pictures going. Still learning this software. Is there anything else that I can say? I think we're going to leave it at that. It's 4:58. Hey, we did a 28-minute show. No calls. I'm not giving up. We'll be here next week and the week after. And I'll be in a different location next week. This house will be rented out. So anyway, this is Captain Tyler coming out of St. Petersburg, Florida. Thanks for watching.